Okay, so we can get started. All right. So welcome to the UROP briefing. I just want to let you know, because there are a couple of these decks circulating on the internet, that you're looking at the right one. So the slides have this like green color up here at the top. So that means if you have the right deck, you should have this time period at the beginning. So my name is Min. I'm Assistant Dean in the undergraduate office. I run the UROP program for the school. And I'm assisted by Ms. Queck, who is the person who you will turn the forms into if you decide to apply for UROP. And so the slides are up there. It's a bit.ly link, and I just minted the video link on YouTube. So if you have friends who aren't able to come to the briefing and they want to watch it or look at the slides, you have the links. Okay, so what is UROP? Basically, it's just a program to allow you as undergraduate students the flexibility of trying to do research. I think it's a very interesting program, especially for universities in Singapore to grab young talent early, develop it, and then a lot of our UROP students, after they've done their UROP, do FYP, and after they do FYP, if they are interested in research, they go on to graduate school elsewhere, or even back at NUS or NTU. And basically, research is a process, right? Probably you learned in secondary school or around that time of the scientific method, right? Scientific method means testing something with hypotheses, right? So you have a thought experiment, and what happens if I do X, right? So you posit what will happen, and then you design experiments to test it, and then you show conclusively that what you've done actually affects the outcomes, okay? So that's the part of it in a nutshell, but it involves a bit more. You have to first come up with the problem, which is the hypothesis, right? Then you have to check, because many times, especially in computer science, we're building upon other people's research, right? You need to know what's been done in the past. And in many cases, you can get cross-fertilized by coming and getting ideas from other people, from other disciplines, by attending research seminars. We have plenty of those going on all the time. You can find those from our front page on the website. And then you also have to do the documentation in the presentation. So a lot of students forget this last point. It's actually very crucial, is to be able to communicate your findings to others. And the best way to do that is, well, doing the second part, which is the literature survey, right? So the more you read research, the better. And if you try to read at a meta level, you'll better understand how to structure your own communications to others. So science it's quite a codified communication style. So there's a regular structure to the way we communicate science, especially in computer science. So when you follow those principles, it'll be easier for other people to follow you and to evaluate you appropriately. Okay, so do make sure if you decide to take on UROP, or if you plan to take FYP later, you spend enough time doing the documentation and the presentation of your results. Now you might be wondering, UROP actually, what type of structure does it have? I think you have looked at the site, right? Everyone's looked at the site, so you're familiar with this, right? It's basically 2 modules. Each module is 4 MCs worth. And there are some prerequisites just to make sure that you've pretty much taken care of a lot of the important parts of the degree requirements. So you have spare capacity to nurture your research side. Right? So we want to know that not that you've done really well in your coursework, but that your coursework won't be a bother to you. So we have a minimum CAP requirement, and that you've pretty much completed a lot of prerequisites. So 60 MCs, so it can be inclusive of any polytechnic exceptions if you come from poly. Okay, and basically the approval of the department is just you fill in these forms, you send it to us. We do the check for the 2 first criteria, and then we'll sign, and then you're in job. Okay, so there's 2 options, and 90% of the projects are 1-year projects, and you can probably understand why. Because research, as I've just outlined to you on the previous slide, takes time. Right? It takes time to know a problem. It takes time to read up and become an expert in an area. And what I mean by an expert in an area is, like, say you take a module on any third level module, okay, 3000 level module, your research that you'll be concentrating on for Europe will be less than one part of one lecture. And you're going to be focused very narrowly on that. And oftentimes you, even at the end of just one semester, 1 year of investigation, will be an expert in that area. You will know more than anyone else in SoC about that area, okay? Because it's a very narrow topic. So in order to develop that expertise, of course, requires time, right? You need to read enough, you need to execute enough experiments, and that's why most of our projects are 2 semesters, okay? Even the ones that are 1 semester, they tend to look like 1.5 years, right? Because they are often paired with a summer or final year project. So some professors say, okay, you want to take a 1 semester Europe, but please consider after doing the 1 semester Europe to continue it so that you can bring it up to a level where you can publish your results. Publishing, of course, makes a big difference. If you're going on to graduate school, you can say, I've published work. People are interested in what I do. It passes the international standard for research. And then it's much easier to argue an acceptance for graduate school. Okay, so the standard way it works is basically 50-50, right? We have 50% of the requirements are based on your continuous assessment for the 2 semesters, right? So if you look at this, right, there is about just very little that's given to you in the first semester of Europe. Okay, so this is 3208. The first 10% is due to one part at the middle of the semester, which is like right around now. Next week, the current Europe students will be turning in this deadline. Okay, and one that's at the end. Okay, so your supervisor who has agreed to supervise your Europe will assign you this 10%. Okay, then in the second semester, you'll be getting the other 40%, right? So another presentation in the middle of the semester that you have to go to your research group and then post on the Ivy League forum for Europe that, oh, I'll be giving this presentation on my research topic. You're welcome to join. Okay, and then the final project and the final report will come at the last 30%. Okay, so this is your supervisor's responsibility, right? But you're also assessed independently of your supervisor by 2 other faculty in NUS SoC. Okay, now our faculty is actually pretty big. We have about total about 100+ faculty members. And that means even though you'll specialize in one very narrow area, which you will become the expert in, there's at least somebody else in the field, in the general field, that would be knowledgeable. So for example, I know a lot of you are probably keen on AI and machine learning. Okay, so it's a hot topic these days. So there are quite a number of faculty who are specializing in that area. So at least one of them will be your examiner. Okay, the other person who's more like a moderator. Okay, so they may not be experts in your area, and you have to convince them that you know what you're talking about and that you've made a contribution. So that's why I say the communication aspects of Europe are very important. Just imagine if you're talking to somebody else in SoC and at the end of your Europe, you're trying to impress them with what you've done. You have to still create that sense of, I know what I'm doing and it's important. Okay, and why is it important? It's not, I mean, it could be technically important, but you have to be able to convey that in a layman manner. Okay, so when you do this 2 semester version, you get the same grade for both semesters. You get an IP grade for the first semester. All right, and then when you complete the second semester and you get all 100% of both the CA and the final, then you'll get your IP grade replaced with your final grade. Okay, so that's how it works. Any questions so far? No, you probably all read this already, right? So it's not new news to you. Okay, so the other version that's not as popular is that you have a 1 semester. Okay, so I have one student who's doing this. So basically, that person is actually going into FYP later, but oftentimes it's like that, right? You have a pathway because of whatever program requirements, you need to graduate on time, or you want to extend the semester because you've gone on, I don't know, exchange or NOC. When you come back, you don't have enough time to do a full Europe, you can take a 1 semester version. Okay? And to be clear, your Europe, whether it's the one semester version or two semester version should be on the same topic. All right. So if you change topic, it's probably better to do it like this. You take one semester of Europe, finish here and say, okay, that wasn't my cup of tea. Okay, I'm going to defend. Maybe midway through the semester, you decide, okay, I'm going to change it to a one semester Europe. With the approval of my supervisor, I found out, machine learning is not really for me or whatever. And I want to go into, I don't know, network or architecture. And then I would begin my FYP in a different group. Okay. So it's almost the same, right? Again, two independent examiners. All your CA is due to your supervisors, just scrunched up into one semester. Okay. So this is how it looks for all of you. Everyone here is interested in starting to take Europe in April this year. You're applying for Europe then. All right. So you would take the application form today. I encourage all of you to take one. And if you know of other people who are interested, just take the copy. Right? If you don't use it, just recycle it. Okay. You can find the forms on the website, but we've printed out a batch for you here. And you need to put the application form as well as the project assignment form. Okay, so the project assignment form is where you go to the project admin website, you pick up a project, okay, or find a project, and I'll talk to you about that in more detail. Okay. And once you've met with the supervisor and they've agreed to supervise you, you get her signature, for example. You come back to the Europe office, the undergraduate office, which is next to the Common lobby, right? On the second floor, the open area. And then you turn in both forms, okay, together. Then what Mrs. Kwek will do is just look up your record in NUS Registrar's office, make sure you have the 60 MCs, make sure you're in good standing. Then she'll pass that to me. I'll just double check and we'll sign it off. Okay, this is a very quick process. So actually, there's no official deadline for Europe applications. We just like to make sure that most people have a strategy for starting Europe by April. So that's why on the forums and on the website, there is a deadline that says April 9th. Okay, but if you decide, or friends later on, it's like, oh yeah, that's really cool that you're doing that type of project. Could I do a Europe? Yes, you can do it even after the deadline. Okay, so the deadline is rolling. Okay, where it officially ends for people going into Europe would be the first day of Sem I of next year. Okay, but for very good reasons, we put it like this. And I'll tell you why. Okay. But first, let's talk about finding projects. Okay. Now, I put the bullet points in this order for a reason. Okay. Now, if you go to the Europe website, they'll tell you to go to this link. Right? Have you guys looked at this link yet? Yeah. It's quite discouraging. Why? Because there's almost no projects there, right? You're like, so SoC is supposed to do research, right? Where's all the research, right? And the fact is that professors, as you might know, are very busy. So they don't put in a lot of project descriptions because they're optional, okay? They don't have, unless they know somebody or they're thinking of really an open call recruiting, they won't put in a Europe proposal, okay? But it's different for FYP. FYP is mandated that we have a certain number of projects, okay? So what does that mean? If a professor doesn't want to spend a lot of time, they're just going to do the minimum effort necessary to put up research projects. They'll put up FYP projects, right? Some of you may apply like shortest queue algorithm when you go to the canteen. It's the same for a professor, okay? You just do the minimum amount of work to get the maximum utility. So I finished the project proposals, okay? So that's why I say you should start with the FYP proposals first, okay? So I don't know what you've gone to the FYP site. Annoying. Let's see whether I can type my password properly. Okay. FYP. So if you look for Sem II, you can see the list is actually not as short as the one for Europe, right? It's scrolling and still scrolling, and there's more. So what I would do is for any of these areas, what I do is go through the FYP for a couple of years, okay? Because there are more than 1 years listed, right? I think you can get to, all right? And just look at the project titles, see whether you're interested in them. What is the general area? You don't have to find a magic fit, okay? And what you're trying to identify is this, okay? Which lecturer is offering that project? So Hugh is in information security. So if you wanted to do an information security project, he would be one of the people who does this type of, along with Rislin and a couple others, okay? But if you look and identify particular researchers, I would try to identify at least 2 or 3 faculty members, okay, that you think are interesting. Then go to the SoC website, look them up, see whether the projects and the research matches your interests. Okay? If it does, then you've got a good match, all right? And then what you want to do next is, right, talk with the faculty, all right? Send them an email, okay? Or knock on their door. Sometimes they're actually in their office, right? Rarely, but sometimes, okay? So if you do that, then you initiate a meeting with them. You say, I saw that you proposed a UROP, or I saw that you had a past FYP project, or I saw that you're doing research in this area. Do you mind if I talk to you? I'm a potential UROP student. Okay. Some of them will entertain you, and you'll have a good meeting with them. And then after you've done that for a couple faculty and met with a couple people, you can decide. Right? So it's really, really critical, again, I want to stress this to you, that you have a good match between your supervisor and you. Okay? It's 2 modules, right? 8 MCs worth of work over an entire year, right? So if you don't get a good match, you could suffer a lot as a consequence of that, right? Now, if you're interested in research, you would take the initiative to at least find 2 live human beings to talk to, right? Because if you don't, and you just talk to one and say, it's pretty good, I'm happy with that. But there's an opportunity cost. What happens if there was a better match, right? You didn't know because you didn't investigate, right? Then it's not a very good outcome, even though you thought it was good. So do your due diligence. You can tell this to your friends who are taking FYP as seniors, okay? At least talk to 2 or 3 faculty. Okay? That is sort of the minimum bar. I interview students and I tell them if they haven't talked to 2 other faculty, you cannot apply to my group. You must go talk to other people first. Okay? Because I am not the right person for a lot of people. I am the right person for a certain subset of people who like the way I advise. Okay? So that's important. Don't neglect that step. All right? You can also propose your own project. So for example, that list that you just saw, okay, here, there are some that are open-ended projects, okay? That means that particular faculty is interested in coming up or supervising you on the topic of your own creation, okay? But again, you still have to look at that faculty's homepage and see, are their research interests aligned to yours, right? If you're, I don't know, in computational biology and you're approaching an IS professor, chances are, even if they have an open-ended project, it won't be a good fit. Okay, so even if they've never said in their description, okay, out here that they have an open-ended project, okay, you can still approach those faculty, right? Like I said, find at least 2 other faculty members, 3 or 4 if you can, all right? Ask them for a meeting, see whether there's synergy there, and then you can tell them, I have my own idea for a project. Are you interested in supervising it? I'm thinking of doing a startup around this idea, but I don't know how to execute it. Could you give me some advice, as a research mentor, how to get this deep tech so I can, have a IP advantage over another company, something like that. Okay. So aside from looking at open-ended projects, right, you can also still look at the UROP list. But this would be my last resort, okay, sadly enough. Okay, so start with the FYP list because it's long. Then go to the faculty that you've identified by going to their homepage, express an interest to them, talk with them, and then meet with them and, carry this form. Do you mind signing this so I don't have to come back and bug you? They'll say yes, right? Because they don't want to have to meet you again until you start the project. Okay? So like I said at the bottom here, the bottom line is because it's research, you have to take the initiative. I mean, yes, we have a UROP project site, okay? But that's sort of like the low-hanging fruit. Why don't you engineer something that you want to do? Even if you're not sure what it is, after a while you will be sure because you've met with other people and you say, yeah, sort of, not really, okay? So here are a couple of the UROP projects that are in the system. I have a couple, but they range all sorts, right? There's some that are in hardware, there are some that are in AI, there's some that are in digital music, some that are more theory-based, and then privacy and other things of this sort. Okay, so please go look through everything. And I want to also tell you something else that is prompted by this slide. There are faculty of different tiers in our school. Okay, what do I mean by tiers? I mean like assistant professor, associate professor, or full prof. Okay, so full profs tend to be more famous professors. They've been around longer. They've had more students. Okay, but it also usually means because they have a large team or have a lot of administrative duties, they don't have a lot of time for students. What does that mean to you? Practically, if you're a student of a full professor, is that maybe you won't meet with them that often, and maybe you'll be meeting with their graduate students instead, okay? Like their master's or their PhD students. Okay? If you pick a faculty member who is a young faculty member recently recruited, like for example, a couple here, I think Cody, Emil, and Trevor, they're both new faculty members. They just started teaching this term. They have a lot of time, okay? More time than people who are running the school like myself. I have to do a lot of paperwork for running our school, okay? So if you want really detailed conversation one-on-one and you're comfortable with that, all right, you like to be giving, get a lot of feedback from people, then you might want to also consider whether they're assistant, associate, or full. Okay, if you're the type of person that can drive the project entirely on your own, okay, and you've done research before, maybe when you were in JC or in Poly, then no problem. Then pick a senior prof. Okay, that's just a preference that you could factor in. Okay, certainly the most important thing is you have a good match in terms of your interest and your advising stuff. Okay. So I also want to tell you what we communicate to the faculty, right? So when we solicit FYP and UROPs, we tell them this, okay? So this slide is new this year. Okay, we tell the faculty that UROP students are usually smarter, they have higher CAP, there's a CAP requirement, not for FYP, okay? That they are younger, so you don't have as many 3,000 or 4,000 level courses in your background, so you may not have as much background, okay? That it's required for a special program like Turing. Are any of you Turing students? No? Okay. You applied? Okay.
We're hoping to get invited.
Okay. Right. So you probably know that soon. Yeah, they will let you know at the end of this year when you get in. Okay, so if you're thinking you're year 2 students, year 1, okay. So then it's still early enough. But again, it's required for Turing students, but open to any SoC students that fulfill that requirements. Okay. The very important thing about UROP is that you're expected to work the full year. This means if you take a summer internship, in addition to doing your summer internship, you should be doing your UROP. Okay. This is different from FYP. FYP starts in August. Okay. UROP starts in April. Okay, meaning as soon as you turn in this form, you can go talk to your supervisor. Okay, I'm studying for my final exams, reading weeks, but you know, all of my modules are a piece of cake. Can you give me some things to do? Right? Yeah, I can do software coding in my sleep. Yeah, I have no problem with team meetings and team dynamics. Okay, if you're that type of person, then go ahead and start. Okay, it's advisable to do that. Okay. And FYP is exactly the opposite of that, right? FYP doesn't have to be research. It's just a project, okay? But UROP has to be research, okay? It's different. FYP is also worth more. It's 3 modules instead of 2. And it's a requirement only pretty much for CEG students. Any of you CEG? Okay, so welcome. You'll be taking FYP, as well as those who aim for first upper. Okay, it's not called that anymore, I forget. Honors. Okay. So this is just a corollary. If you take UROP, you also have some resources assigned to you. It's so old, I don't think anyone actually invokes this, but you can. Okay. And there are some exemption criteria. So if you're in CS, you have some exemptions if you're a Turing student. Okay. Otherwise, nothing else applies to you. Anyone here a USP student? No? Okay. So if you're a USP student, you can use it to count as your independent study modules, which is like research-oriented type of work. And I don't think we have any computational biology students anymore that are coming in. Okay, so if you are going to apply for any of these exceptions, just keep it in the back of your mind so that when you're doing your job, you're like, oh, I remember I can use this to get out of something else. Okay, so just want to tell you that actually our UROP students do very well. Some of them do win awards at the university level. Many of them go on to graduate school. So UROP is usually the first encounter you have with research. So when you make a good connection with your research mentor, it will be the start of a blossoming career in research. Okay? So for example, this particular gentleman was working with Stephanie in the CQP, the Center for Quantum Physics. And he did a UROP on computing bounds for quantum probabilities. I think they published his work. Another one closer to my area, he's doing machine translation, which is a type of NLP, a type of AI. Worked on, I think, Indonesian and Malaysian machine translation using fairly general methods. And he also said he really enjoys the meaningful experience, and it's a good way to take enrichment from SoC. Okay, so there's a lot of FAQs. You can look at this in detail later, since you have the URL for it. So you can look at this at your leisure. Okay, so that's the entire briefing. So I have time to discuss any questions that you have, especially if you have specific areas that you're interested in. I'd like to get to know potential UROP students, so I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself and just say a couple sentences about your interests. Okay, so maybe we start with this gentleman in the front. What's your name?
Kelvin.
Kelvin.
And from CG.
Okay.
Actually, I have a question because
good.
I'm not able to take a one-year program because of the compulsory internship, internship attachment. So if I take one semester Euro program, can I continue to do like dissertation, but in the computer science part and not the engineering? Because in the recommended schedule is the engineering side of dissertation.
I think CEG is quite open to that. We have a lot of CEG students who do FYPs with CS advisors, and plenty that are doing projects in CEG, but they're taking more CS slanted projects, meaning that it could be a CEG advisor, which is partially engineering, partially CS, but the project is more like maybe software related than hardware. Okay, so that's very possible. And where you would start that conversation is when you choose your UROP, maybe you would talk to somebody who is interested in doing research in CS related venues, right? Because you said CS, they don't mind for UROP, but for CEG, the FYP component must be more engineering, right? So in those cases, after you've talked with your UROP advisor, maybe they're interested in keeping you around in the research group so that you have a better chance of publishing, and they will propose an FYP, and that would be fine.
All right.
Does that answer your question, Calvin?
Yeah.
Great. And sir in the back with the water bottle?
My name is Eldon.
Eldon, okay.
Yeah, actually met you before.
Yes. Yeah.
So my research area right now is, what I'm interested in right now is either algorithms or computational complexity. Or something in theory of computation.
Great. So you know who to approach for those, right?
So Sanjay, Frank, Ash.
Yeah. Yeah, there are a couple other ones. It depends on which area of application you might also be interested in.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go find out.
But yeah, you could start with Sanjay and Frank as a first start. Some of those people are doing for example, more AI algorithms.
Algorithmic learning theory.
Yeah. Yeah, but you could look at other people like Roland Yap does some types of theory. Martin Hens also does some.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Okay. So, sir?
First I have a question.
Sure.
Yeah. So what are the deliverables during the summer period if I were to take a 1 year thing? Because I think I anticipate this semester will be quite busy and my summer I have an internship also. So but I really want to do the 1 year because I intend to go for theory.
Okay. Yeah, there are no formal deadlines during the summer. I will just share with you why it's important to do it during the summer. All right. If you look at a semester, all right, and your workload during the semester, you'll see it shaped like a triangle. Okay, meaning that during midterms you're already pretty busy. Like right now, okay, you had to make time to come to this briefing, right? Because you're already pretty busy. You're saturated with study. But that gets worse, right, as the semester goes on. You have projects, you have additional midterms, tests, homework assignments, you know, and maybe some of your ECA and CCA is coming due, right? So it gets really tough. So what happens when you're doing research? There's no specific deadlines. There's no homework assignment deadlines, you know. There's no cramming for anything. So basically, it goes away, you know. You shelve it until you're available, okay? So what happens is that only at the beginning of the semesters do you actually have time to do research, okay? And after the midterm, it basically dwindles, all right? So I imagine it like a triangle. Like at the beginning, you have 100% of your time because your modules have just started. There's no tutorials. No one's taught anything yet. And in fact, it's only administrative garbage, right? So you don't actually have to go to class very much, okay? So you have 100% of your time to do whatever you want. Some people immerse themselves in CCA, ECA, rag and flag or whatever, okay? But you, since you took on research, you're obligated to do research, right? Okay? But after the midterm, basically that's gone away. So basically, you only have 1/2 of each semester to do your research, okay? Add that up, right? 1/2 plus 1/2 equals 1, right? 1 semester for a 1-year project. Now imagine if you have your summertime to also work on it. Oh, another 3 months. What's that? That's a semester, right? So you've gotten about 50% more time to do your research, okay? Now, student A does an internship, doesn't have any time for Europe, okay? Student B didn't take an internship, did his Europe over the summer. Who has a better probability of getting a good grade? Yeah, all right, you know, okay? So I'm not saying that it's set in stone. That's why I said probability, okay? A lot of different outcomes happen when you're doing research. But it's very tried and tested and true. The more time you plow into research, the better it is. And it's a lot because of this particular outline, okay? It takes time, right? I tried to impart that to you before. You have to come up with an idea. Many people, including myself, I don't propose projects that have a clear problem formulation. Why? Because that is part of the research endeavor, you know? I don't tell you exactly what to do, then it's a homework assignment. It's not research, okay? So my point is to train you in research, okay? So I say, you know, this area looks interesting. I think there's something to be done here. You figure it out, okay? And so it takes time to do these first 2 steps, like read up what's being done, come up with an idea. All right, so now I have a hypothesis. Then, you know, I propose and implement something that was based on somebody else's paper. I got bugs in my code, I debug it, I got more bugs in my code, I debug it, I test it, it doesn't work as well as I thought, you know, etc. All of those are the same thing that happens in software engineering, right? You've all been are taking that or will take that, right? So all those types of bugs happen even in your research. Okay? So if you don't adequately scope for the time for that, you will end up in trouble. Okay? You'll have a Europe that's not quite there yet. Okay? And that's okay. I mean, it's a research endeavor, but if you assign more time in it, there will be a higher probability of success. Okay? All right. So to answer your question, sorry about the tangential ramble. There is no specific deliverables that you need to do over the summer. Okay. For some advisors, they say, yeah, just do these 2 parts at the beginning. I just leave you alone. You just go figure out things on your own. But again, as I said also here, oops, wrong way. Okay, you have to take the initiative. Many times your professor may be too busy to like keep track of where you are. And they've got many fish to fry, right? So it's up to you to be proactive. You tell them, here's where I am, and you just put it in your calendar every week, every couple of days, every 3 weeks or whatever you decide. I will mail the professor, an update and ask for feedback, ask for meeting, so that you can do that. Okay. Again, this is really important. Why? Because of these two slides. You see this? 50% of your grade comes from your supervisor. If you never meet them, you never talk to them, or you never try to talk to them, how are they going to give you that 50%? All right? So you have to prove it. I mean, in the normal module, you don't have this problem. You have a lot of CA, you have exams, and other assessment. But not when you're doing independent projects, right? That's up for you to manufacture. What are the deadlines for you? Okay? All right. Did I answer your question? Okay. Sir?
Jeremiah.
Jeremiah? Uh-huh.
Actually, I'm quite new to this whole research thing.
Okay. Probably everyone here is, yeah.
First time hearing such a thing.
Okay.
It's area of interest, information retrieval.
Information retrieval? Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So there are a couple people in that area. I do that. I used to teach the IR course. Now, Zhao Jin, who was my PhD student who graduated, is now teaching that module. There's Tat-Seng Chua, who's a senior prof. He's also in the social media area. So if you like, social media, that's an area that he concentrates on. Who else? I think from the machine learning algorithmic optimization point of view, Wei Sun also does this. Li Wei Sun, he does a lot of machine learning research. He's had some students work on IR before. Yeah. Sir?
Jared.
Jared?
Year 2 computer science.
Okay.
I'm sure his business currently be a bit of blockchain as well.
Okay. So blockchain, I think Pratik does quite a lot of research in that area, Pratik Saxena. Security would be Zenkai and Yichen. So we have a National Cybersecurity Center. I think it's very easy to find on the web. And you can look at the PIs there. And they have a lab over in IQ that you can take part in. So I think that's a very important area for Singapore. So it's likely that you'll get good projects from there. There's also industry folks that work in security that are also adjunct faculty with us. So there's a prof called, her name is Rizlin Fing. She's with A-Star. And she also does manages a number of FYP projects in this area. Miss? Okay, so AI, I think the relevant faculty is probably Yair Zik and also Brian Lim. They're both more junior professors, but they have a lot of experience publishing in those areas. There's also a lot of other work with uncertainty in AI, Bayesian machine learning. That's, again, Brian's area, but also a couple people in databases in medical informatics. So Xin Young would be also somebody that you could look into if you're interested in medical informatics. And then with respect to deep learning, unfortunately, NUS doesn't have that much expertise. That would be Wang Wei. He's a new professor who's in the database area, but also very well versed in the computational aspects of deep learning. And there are scattered people who have done applied deep learning. So for example, my group, Guitao's group, who does natural language processing, Tat-Seng's group, who I mentioned earlier. All of the vision folks, of course, are doing that. So that's Terrence Sim, Michael Brown, who's on leave, Weikeng Liu, who does computer vision for medical images. So there's a lot of areas to look at. So are you interested in more applied, or you're looking at more theoretical, more deep learning, or more traditional machine learning? Do you know? Have you taken the machine learning course yet? Right now. Okay, so you're in Yair's course and you're in Brian's course. Yeah, so I think for machine learning, definitely there's two very different paradigms. Right? There's the current deep learning approaches, which are basically based on linear algebra. And then there are lots of traditional machine learning approaches like SVMs and uncertainty and Bayesian processing, which I think Brian has just started teaching. I think this week he did some Bayesian stuff. Okay, start in the front.
Already here.
Okay.
Here with Carl.
Okay.
Just drag him along.
Okay, great. So do you guys have any other questions? I'll be happy to take your questions. Yeah?
I think the end of, especially that start from Sem I, start to.
Yeah, you can come to this briefing again in October. Okay, then you can start then. Yeah, so that would be for people who want to start, for example, January 2019. Yeah, you can still have the one semester version, and then the one semester version is usually going to do something like with the summertime. So there's a summertime option that basically says you can do it with the summer UROP. Okay, so you would do, for example, CP2 3208 in the spring term, and then extend it into the summer, right, as a special term project. Yeah, sure. Yeah, as I said, most of the projects are 1 year, so it doesn't matter where the summer is. It could be at the beginning. It could be sandwiched in the middle. In fact, sandwiched in the middle is good in some senses. You have some reprieve, and you can make some adjustments to your schedule if you're not quite meeting the guideline that you think. Okay. I mean, I know many of us in CS and CEG, IS, VZA, you may have other programs that you're considering, like NOC or SCP. Those are all great programs. I highly encourage you to maximize what you have at NUS, where when I went to college, we didn't have a lot of these opportunities. You know, we had something like FYP. It was called UROP, but it was FYP really, because it was only for fourth-year students. We didn't have any exchange. So those are always good enrichment devices. Other questions? Okay, so please come and pick up a form and do your due diligence. I'm going to assign it as a homework, okay? So over the weekend, please go find at least 2-3 faculty members you want to approach, okay? And then send them an email, okay? So you took one already? Anyone listening?
Doing more like information theory.
Information theory, I think that would be Frank and Sanjay. Yeah.
Rahul Jain from CQT.
That's right.
And Agarwal Divesh from CQT also. CQT section. Yeah. As in Rahul and Divesh.
Okay.
Yeah. I think Rahul right now is currently also teaching information theory. Yes, I'm teaching under him.
Okay, so thanks for coming to the briefing. If you have more questions, you know where to find me, right? It's just send us email here. Okay, thank you.